How's it going, everybody? And welcome back to the baseball edition of the Casual Fan Podcast, the most informative, the most profitable sports gambling podcast you will find. I'm feeling good. Hope you're feeling good. Let's keep the ball rolling. Let's keep making some money here. All it takes to win this free money, this truckload of free cash, like the YouTube videos at the Casual Fan Podcast on YouTube and Spotify, and Fan the Casual on Instagram, on Twitter. Boom, it's that easy. Now today we're gonna start our epic journey breaking down the 6 divisions across the league, starting with the good old American League East, a league that sent 3 teams to the expanded playoffs last year. To make it really simple, we'll be breaking down 3 simple but very key elements of each organization: in offense, in defense, and off-season acquisition categories. I'm obviously not just gonna tell you who's gonna win the division, something that everyone could probably kind of do. Yankees coming in at -200, but I'm also gonna go into each team's over-under, see whether you should hammer that over or maybe hammer the under. If you're unaware, each team plays 19 games against their division opponents, so divisional strength is really important when we're looking at these over-under numbers. We'll get right into it. The evil empire of the New York Yankees are coming in at -200 to win the division. The over-under is at 95.5. They were on pace to win 89 games last year, so that over-under is 6.5 games higher what they would have won over the course of a 162 game season. The only real change that's going to happen on the offensive side is Clint Frazier is finally going to start wasting away in the minors, and he has been announced as the starting left fielder for the Yanks. Then after that, all the changes pretty much come in the rotation. A big move was re-signing their man DJ LeMahieu. I think out of all the free agent acquisitions in this offseason, that one was close to a foregone conclusion. They really do seem to get along quite well. But the rotation's looking a lot different. Corey Kluber's going to be coming in as the SP2 right behind Garrett Cole. And then Jameson Taillon, he hasn't pitched since May of 2019, is coming back from Tommy John surgery. So he'll almost have gone 2 years without throwing in the majors. I mean, often players don't come all the way back from that injury until the following year, but we are seeing players have a bit more success coming back from these injuries with just technology and science these days. Step above my pay grade. It's not like a 3-headed monster. It's really a 1-headed monster. 1B, Corey Kluber, and then the rest, you know, whatever. J.A. Happ, Masahiro Tanaka, James Paxton, they're all gone. Have they improved with them leaving? It's actually hard to say at this point. Some people say yes, I'm not so sure. It's definitely not a slam dunk, but let's look at the rest of the rotation. Jordan Montgomery's gonna be the SP4. I kind of dug him last year. He just had to run into a few bad outings, had a bit of bad BABIP luck. His swinging strike rate was 12.9, which is really good. Mingo Herman's also coming back. I think right now he's predicted as the SP5 to lock it down until Severino comes all the way back. And they got Devi Garcia in the minors too, in case they need any help filling in a start here and there. He's proven he's more than capable. Now on offense, guys, we don't need to dig too deep into this. It's all about the health of their 2 absolute beast sluggers, Giancarlo Stanton and Aaron Judge. And Sanchez for that matter behind the dish, but more so Judge and Stanton. I don't think that they have adequate position players behind them. Brett Gardner, Jay Bruce, Talkman, sure, fine, whatever. Judge missed 31% of the games in 2018, 38% of the games in 2019, and 54% of the games in 2020. That's just not doable. That's unsustainable. You can't have that from your #1 offensive weapon. Same with Giancarlo Stanton. In 2018, he played only 18 games of 162. And last year, he played 23 games out of 60. Reports are that they're both kind of taking the Tom Brady approach. They kind of focus more on their flexibility than their weight training. Like, what took you so long to figure that out? Everyone's been telling them that for years and years and years, and finally they're adopting that. Better late than never. Hopefully this can help them stay healthy a little bit. With all that being said, guys, I'm still gonna take the over on the New York Yankees. If they do stay healthy, they'll blow past that over-under number, and you'll be kicking back, laughing, having a beer with, you know, 3 weeks left in the season and they'll already have reached that number. They had 103 wins in 2019, 100 in 2018, and we've already said how that was without Judge and Stanton for quite a bit of it. Now let's talk about the old Toronto BJs coming in at plus 350 to win the division. Their over-under is set at 86.5. It's the exact same amount of wins they were on pace for last year if you expanded it over a full season, but they clearly got better, especially on offense. Maybe they're taking into the fact that they'll be playing their games in Dunedin and then maybe Buffalo until eventually moving to Toronto. very transient team at the moment. They're a good group of young guys who really like each other. I don't think this is going to derail their season in the way it might derail other teams. Now let's talk about the major changes. Start off with George Springer coming in with that big fat contract. Blue Jays fans love to see it. Hopefully he can deliver what he did in Houston. And then the 2019 third place in MVP voting. Marcus Simeon's going to be playing second base for the Blue Jays this year. And then finally Kirby Yates they brought in to close it out at the end of games. Hopefully he can recapture his 2019 form where he led the league with 41 saves. In that whole season, he only gave up 8 earned runs. The rest of the offseason acquisitions is fairly nice. They brought in Steven Matz for a bunch of prospects. We'll see. The Jays do have a sneaky good pen. They are really gonna need to outscore teams this year. After all the spending this offseason, the fact that Tanner Roark is coming back in the rotation is in no short terms an organizational failure. He does not have it anymore. Hopefully Ross Stripling can find his form and jump into the rotation. Trent Thornton should be coming back at some point in the season, and who knows, maybe Ricky Ray will finally wake up and be able to find the strike zone. If the three guys, Ray, Matz, and Roark, finish with a low 4s ERA, that's a positive. I'm sure Jays fans will take that right now. And then it's another year for development for the future All-Stars, Nate Pearson, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Bo Bichette, Kevon Biggio. They're gonna need to get more out of their catcher position. Alejandro Kirk is rumored to back up Danny Jansen. Who cares who's gonna back up who? Their catcher position's been weak for a while. They have to improve that. Offensively, they're gonna be pretty good. They've got good OBP and some pop all through that lineup. I'm gonna take the over, hoping they can beat up on the guys in the division like the Baltimore Orioles, the Boston Red Sox, and finally get out of the shadow of the Tampa Bay Rays. I think they're better than last year, and they're the kind of team that can be galvanized by all the COVID-related upheaval and not let it get them distracted too much. The back end of the rotation is not good, but the back end of the bullpen is very good. So hopefully if they can just get in winning situations, the pen can close it out. The World Series runners-up and the AL champs of last year, the Tampa Bay Rays, come in at plus 350. They seem to be kind of turning into the San Antonio Spurs, New England Patriots kind of organization. They get rid of a guy a year too soon, then a year too late, and they're not gonna overpay their guys. I mean, it's kind of out of necessity because they got no dough. They got no cash flow. They're a broke-ass organization who would probably be playing in Montreal right now if it wasn't for COVID. Last year, they were on pace for 108 wins. That would be the second most in the whole league behind the Dodgers. And they won the most games in the AL by 4 games, which is a heck of a lot in a 60-game season. The over-under entering this year is 85.5. Guys, that's a 22.5 game drop-off from last year. So everyone can see the regression coming. They lost their 2018 Cy Young winner, Blake Snell, and they lost their other ace, Charlie Morton. To replace them, they signed a 41-year-old Rich Hill who can't stay healthy, Chris Archer, who used to play for them, but he hasn't had an ERA below 4 since 2015. And he's coming off an injury that saw him miss all of last year. As I talked about in the AL Cy Young video that you can go back and watch, I'm not buying the Tyler Glasnow hype too much. He's gonna be good, he's gonna have more wins than losses, but his control and stay healthy, I'm not gonna put him there as a guy who's a guaranteed W every time he goes out. Ryan Yarbrough was an okay starting pitcher for last year, and Michael Wacha. Now on offense is where it kind of gets exciting for the Rays. They do have Wander Franco coming up, the #1 prospect in baseball. He's only 19, but he is projected to see the field this year. At 26 years old, their breakout last year was Randy Arozarena. He's projected to hit 3rd this year. He only played 2 games in August, and then he got in the lineup in September, and they just couldn't take him out. He had a 1.273 postseason OPS. He had 77 postseason at-bats compared to 64 regular season at-bats. Austin Meadows was great his first 2 seasons. I think he's gonna pick back up his form he had before the COVID diagnosis. Brandon Lowe is a very underrated second baseman in this league. Lowe had a high .284 ISO last year. That's second in the league behind his division peer at second base, DJ LeMahieu. Actually, fun fact, in terms of offensive rating, the top 3 second basemen all came from the AL East, being LeMahieu, Lowe, and Biggio over in Toronto. And you never know, if the Francisco Mejia catcher that they got back in the Blake Snell trade. He was a young prospect for quite a while who hasn't realized his potential. Maybe they can get something out of him and replace Zunino in that lineup. Overall, I'm pretty big into a team's morale, circumstances surrounding their team, and when you just fall short of a World Series and lose in the manner that they did, where they scapegoated their manager Kevin Cash, they inexplicably pulled Blake Snell in the win or go home game, and then they got him out of town because they wouldn't pay him. That doesn't seem like a recipe to success for me. All that being said, I am gonna put my faith in the Tampa Bay Rays to be essentially a 500 team this year, which is all they have to do. I see the rotation being an issue, but their offense is pretty darn good. We know what they're like with their bullpen, that if they can get a lead into the 5th or 6th inning, they're as good as anyone at maintaining that win and going all the way to victory. They just squeak out the over. Now for the bottom feeders of the division, and no disrespect, I'm not gonna spend a ton of time on these guys. The Boston Red Sox coming at plus 2,000 to win the division. Not gonna happen. The over-under is 80.5. I don't really understand that number. This is not a 500 baseball team. Their projected win total last year would have been 64.8. So they're projected to win 15.5 more games than last year. Where the hell is that number coming from? They finished last season last in the AL East, a game behind the Orioles, the stinking Orioles. I mean, in terms of roster changers, they got rid of their past phenom, Andrew Benintendi. They had to pay part of his salary to get him over to Kansas City. They brought in Franchi Cordero in that trade among some other prospects. We'll see if he can amount to anything. Brought in Hunter Renfroe in free agency. He was disastrous last year. He did have some bad BABIP luck, .156, so he should bounce back, but even when he bounces back, he's not a game changer. Brought in Adam Ottavino, Matt Andrees, and a Japanese pitcher by the name of Saramura coming over from the Japanese league, who actually had some really good numbers over there. It's a really uphill battle. It's a long way to go to get that bullpen in shape. Probably the most important offseason acquisition was bringing back their former manager, disgraced manager, Alex Cora. For the Red Sox, last season was a bad season. This season's going to be a bad season. Chris Sale just got put back on the 60-day DL, some complications returning from his injury. Last year, they allowed 5.85 runs a game. That's a close second behind Colorado. They gave up the most homers in the league, and they had a team 1.61 whip. No other team in the league was even in the 1.5s. They need all their starters to have best case scenario years. That's Nathan Eovaldi, Martin Perez, Garrett Richards, and Erod. None of which, by the way, are projected to have a whip below 1.3. On offense, Bobby Dalbec came in as a rookie and had a decent .959 OPS across 23 games. It's really going to come down to Rafael Devers and JD Martinez, their 3 and 4 hitters, getting their groove back. I trust that Devers will. He is really young, and his average was .298 in the second half of last season. JD Martinez is the concern though. 33 years old, power numbers and peripherals all way down. So he's gonna now have to start using his savvy veteran know-how just to get on base if his power is diminished. And he only had a .291 on base percentage last year. He's gonna have to readjust his approach at the plate. And then Xander Bogaerts with his great self. And Alex Verdugo, who they got from the Dodgers the season prior, he was actually a good, nice surprise, but he did have a .391 BABIP, which should regress. Their pitching is atrocious, and while they have a few decent bats in the lineup, it's not enough to carry them to victory. Choosing the under here is the easiest decision to make on the over-unders in the entire division. And finally, guys, coming up the rear, we have the Baltimore Orioles at plus 5,000 to win the division. The over-under is 64.5. Last year, they were on pace for 65.5 wins, so it's right around that number, just a few games less. In terms of offseason changers, they only really got worse. They lost their best pitcher, Alex Cobb. He's now playing for the Angels. They brought in Freddie Galvis, very underwhelming. He'll man the infield. He's the only guy in the lineup who's going to be 30 years of age or older, so they're going quite young here. Most of the changes will come internally. Thank God we got Trey Mancini back from a colon cancer diagnosis. He got treated. He missed last year. He's back. Hopefully he can find his form. And Ryan Mountcastle is the 4th prospect in terms of ranking within the organization, 77th overall on MLB's top 100 prospects. He had a nice .33 average last year in 35 games, but his high BABIP will regress those numbers a little bit, and it's well documented that his defense is not major league caliber. In terms of pitching, John Means is fine. In terms of ranking the opening day starters for teams, he's definitely one of the worst. Their SB2 is going to be their 8th overall prospect, Keegan Aiken. He was okay last year in a small sample size, but if he's your second pitcher, that's saying something. And then guys, you're never gonna believe it, they got Matt Harvey and Felix Hernandez to round it out. Oh, wait a minute, not 2013 anymore, it's 2021. These guys are old, these guys stink. Like, what are you doing? Then they're gonna give the ball to Hunter Harvey to close out games in the very rare circumstances where they do have a win going into the 9th inning. Let's be honest, guys, an actual casual fan would not be able to name a single player in this Baltimore Orioles organization. And nor should they, because there's no one really worth knowing, to tell you the truth. There's a reason why they have the lowest under in the AL and the second lowest in the league behind the Pittsburgh Pirates. Still, how can you, in all good conscience, put your hard-earned money on the over in this situation? Like, how did the Orioles win 40% of their games to reach that over-under number? I don't think they do. I'm gonna take the under here, and I'm gonna take it fairly confidently. My picks ranked by confidence, how personally confident I am, how much money I would be putting on each, going from most to least. I'd say Red Sox under, Blue Jays over, Orioles under, Yankees over, and then finally the Rays over, if I had to say. Okay guys, thanks so much for watching. That's it for this week. We're gonna look at the AL Central next time out. In the meantime, in order to get all the money you need to bet on baseball when it starts April 1st, go watch Patrick Struthers while he covers hockey on the Casual Fan podcast as well. He's just giving out winners after winners, and you're just gonna make a ton of money. And then when baseball season starts, you can just keep winning money. It's great. Okay guys, thank you so much. See you next time.